Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome everybody to the FY22 CIP Community Workshop. Due to COVID, we're having to do this a little differently than we did last year, but I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Keegan Luttrell, the Public Works Director. In a minute, our capital improvement what is your title? Coordinator, geez. Our capital improvement coordinator will get up and go through the presentation of what we're proposing for fiscal year 22. And we just wanted to let everybody know that this is being recorded, so if you're unable to watch the whole thing, you can always come back at a later time. That'll be posted on our YouTube and on the city website. And also want to let everybody know that at the end, we're going to open up the phone line for people to call in with any questions or comments that they want to provide towards the projects we're proposing. So, Carol, turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm Carol Lellis, the CIP coordinator, and I'm going to go through a PowerPoint that'll take us through the process of the CIP for fiscal year 22. The Capital Improvement Program is a multi-year planning document, and its capital improvement projects are anything with a cost of over $25,000. That is the new replacements, improvements of infrastructure or vehicles which have a minimum life expectancy of 5 years. And just to reiterate that this is only, we're asking for a tentative approval of only fiscal year 22. The majority of the CIP projects are funded through non-general fund sources, which are listed here. And all funding sources have been verified with the finance director and the finance department. The funding sources are for the entire CIP are broken out on this slide. For a total of $13,982 or $982,833. So we have everything that's on our CIP has positive funding. And I do want to point out here, there's a required 16.67% fund balance that must be maintained for the operating fund. The following slides are the fiscal year 22 CIP requests by department. So beginning with the airport, there was no CIP projects for fiscal year 21. These are the projects for fiscal year 22 that are being suggested. We move on to streets, which this is the fiscal year 22 requests. And we've also included the open projects because of the COVID situation, and some of the projects were the city CIP for 21 were put on hold. And I've identified those at the bottom if a project was not started on the bottom of the slides. So these are ongoing open projects as of 10/31/2020, and underneath the CIP fiscal year 21 that have been funded but not started. For public works, these are the 22 projects and the funding sources. And these are the open projects as of 10/31/2020 and the CIP for 21 that have not been started. Also, you'll see in yellow, these are, we are asking City Council to consider reallocating these projects in order, these are projects that have not been done for different or for various reasons. The project may have changed, the funding source may have changed, or the pricing due to the, just the fiscal environment. So what we're doing is asking council to consider reallocating these where the funds stay in CIP, but we're able to bring back forward to the council new projects with new pricing and new structure. We go into the Parks and Rec, and these are the requests for 22. And here again, these are the open projects as of 10/31/2020, and the highlighted in yellow that say reallocate are the ones we're asking for the council to consider reallocation so we can bring updated projects forward. And the ones on the bottom were approved in CIP 21, but those projects have not been started as of this time. We move on to Boulder Creek Golf Course. And again, in yellow are the projects that we're asking for reallocation by the council. The municipal golf course projects. And this is just for 22. And again, the open projects for as of October 31st, and the projects we're asking for reallocation. The project funding request for the police department for fiscal year 22. The open projects, again, they have one for reallocation and the CIP 21 that was approved that have not been started. The fire department request for fiscal year 22. The open projects for the fire department. And the two open projects have actually been closed recently. So that's why the available budgets are very small, but they stay until the end of the fiscal year. They'll actually stay there. And then fiscal year 21, these projects were approved, but we have not moved forward. The court had no open projects for as of 10/31/2020. They had one project for fiscal year 21 CIP that has not been started. And they have one request for fiscal year 22. We move into utilities, starting with electric. And these are the tentative approved projects for fiscal year 22. The following is for water. We move on to sewer. And again, just a reminder, we're only asking for tentative approval and final approval in June for fiscal year 22. So that's why if there's projects at the bottom that don't show funding, it's because their funding is beginning in for outward years. All the open utility projects do include CIP for fiscal year 21. And it shows the activity where several of the fiscal year 21 as of other projects have been put on hold. It's a continuation. These open projects and fiscal year 21 are broken down by funds. So it goes electric, water, wastewater, and landfill. IT, information technology, had no open projects as of 10/31/2020. It has no requests for 22, and it has one project that was approved for funding in fiscal year 21 that had not been started. Final is the VERF, the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund. So the request for 22 and the CIP fiscal year 21 that has not been started. And that's the conclusion of the slides. The final, the tentative adoption of the capital improvement plan is tentatively for January 26, 2020, or 2021, I apologize, at the council. They incorporate the funding for the CIP into the fiscal year 22 general operating budget and the whole process, and then we will submit the adopted CIP to the state for Nevada by June 1st.
Thank you, Carol. So now we're going to open up the phone line for anybody to call in with any questions. I do want to remind everybody that this is recorded, so if you need to go back and look at the spreadsheets or any of the projects in more detail, you're welcome to. It should be posted to the city website shortly after this meeting. And then also remind everybody that we have set up an email address for any CIP-related questions. That email address will be there year-round. So if anybody has any questions 6 months from now, they're welcome to use that. It's a good way to get a hold of Carol or myself. The email address for that is cip@bcnv.org. So we'll be monitoring that year-round. So if anybody has any questions in the future, please feel free to use that. Also want to let anybody know that we're going to take all the questions that we get today. We'll answer them to our best ability, but if we can't answer them, we're going to have a Q&A on the CIP website after the fact. So if you want to come back and check that in a few days, hopefully we'll have all the answers there, and then as we receive more questions, we can add the answers there in the future. So we'll open up the phone lines. The phone number is 702-589-9629. Oh, just to let everybody know, it is not 1 p.m. So we are here right now. So if you're listening, please call with your questions.
Yes, good morning. Fred Volz for the record. Hopefully it's more than lip service when the concepts of cost-benefit analysis and return on investment are introduced into the discussion of future city capital projects. One more concept needs to be applied to all the proposals: repurposing unused, underutilized, or inappropriate city facilities. A collaboration with local colleges, universities, and the CCSD to repurpose the water filtration plant as a living training facility for students with cost sharing for capital maintenance and upgrades would serve our community in multiple ways. There has been no visible initiative or outreach to these entities towards implementing such a plan, even though it was suggested a year ago. No capital projects have been proposed for the largely derelict Elaine K. Smith Center. It stores paper records and holds the occasional public meeting in a structurally suspect building, but continues to be underused in relation to its holding costs. Should it be sold and the proceeds invested in something more productive, demolished, or repurposed into something else useful for the community? We have no proposed capital projects focused on water conservation by city operations. There are vast swaths of ornamental turf on the east side of Veterans Memorial Park, in front of and adjacent to City Hall, the newly turfed area in front of the Parks and Rec Administration Building, grass around the skateboard park, excess grass in Oasis Park, excess grass in Hemingway Park, and excess grass at the two city golf courses that are not part of greens or fairways. Why are we not proposing capital projects to eliminate some, not all, of the ornamental turf with xeriscape in our desert community that is facing more severe drought conditions with another dry winter. We could repurpose the underused great lawn in the center of Veterans Memorial Park as a fenced dog park without planting new grass. Boulderites who lack large private yards and want their dogs to run off-leash would be able to control their dogs in separate fenced areas and not pose a danger to people or other pets on leash. All we need is a capital project for fencing to make this a reality. A new capital project deserving funds is installation of hinged metal arms that would limit after-hours vehicular access to Veterans Memorial Park at its south and east entry points between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. when the park is officially closed. As for projects that deserve to be deleted or delayed because they are unnecessary or frivolous, here are some suggestions. $200,000 of city park improvements, $45,000 of skateboard park lighting, $87,563 of Boulder Creek pavilion improvements, $250,000 of police building conversions, $925,000 of airport fuel tank improvements, which should be funded and run by an experienced private operator, $395,000 of bike path rehabilitation, $200,000 of streetscape rehabilitation, $200,000 of aquatic and cultural center design, when it is very uncertain voters will approve tens of millions of dollars for a renovated or new swimming pool, $170,000 of bistro lighting, $127,600 of Hemingway Park expansion, $250,000 of Wayland Field outfield renovations, $132,582 of Boulder Creek maintenance yard paving, $100,000 for a sand bin at Boulder Creek, $150,000 for Boulder Creek course restrooms, $250,000 for Boulder Creek pavilion restrooms. At both Boulder Creek and the municipal golf courses, golf cart and maintenance equipment leases should be paid for only from golf course revenues, not funded by the general fund or else scaled back. If the current plans proceed, then this means greens fees must increase so only users are paying for the facilities from which they benefit. There is the continuing concern with the city utility system that it cannot accomplish all of the capital projects it already has, with over an $18 million backlog of yet to be started or incomplete projects. Adding over $6.7 million of new 2022 projects only makes the situation worse, with inadequate staff to plan, manage, and implement the projects. A list of approved consultants used by other local entities is not going to solve the backlog problem that has lingered for at least the last several years, as these people must be overseen by city staff. And two other comments. One is a question. Reallocated funds need to be placed in a specific general ledger account apart from active projects until such time as they are applied to another purpose. This balance needs periodic tracking and public visibility. And finally, in the comments of Ms. Lillis, I was concerned when I heard her say that we're not closing out projects when we actually finish them. We wait until the end of the fiscal year. And the question is why? Is there some FASB, GASB, MASB ruling that we have to follow, or is this just some procedure that needs to be changed? Because when the project is closed and all the money has been spent, we shouldn't be having the money linger. Thank you, and I'll ask that these comments be added to the record of the meeting.
Fred, are you still there? Yeah. Okay, well, I can touch on a couple of the items for everybody that's listening. At our city council workshop that we had on was it December 1st? On December 1st, there was a number of questions that came up from council during that meeting. And we are at the next city council meeting on the 12th, we are addressing all those questions that came up, and some of the questions that Mr. Volz had are included on that, such as the filtration plant, all of the turf that Mr. Volz was talking about. We're planning to do a turf audit on a lot of our parks, and see what there is that can be removed, working with SNWA for their rebate program. So that is stuff that we are looking into. And then I noticed a lot of the projects that he had recommended for deletion or delay, a lot of those projects, I wouldn't say all, but a lot of those projects are already being asked to be reallocated. There is a number of those projects that we realize that are not necessary at this time, or purely the cost estimate wasn't right, and because it's so outdated. So a number of those are being asked to be reallocated, and for that reallocation, my understanding is that money is going to be put in a separate pot of money. It's going to be separated from all of our projects, and if we do have a new project that we'd like to come forward with, we'll come to council, we'll ask them for project X for $100,000 to come out of that reallocation pot. So that is going to be separated. And there was one other. Oh, the question at the end about project closeout. These projects are being closed out. They're just not being removed from the tracker until the end of the year. I don't know if it's a GASB, MASB, whatever other acronyms you had used. I don't know if it's one of those rules or exactly why. We'll get that answered from finance, but they are remaining on the ledger, but they are in fact closed out. Oh, Carol has the answer for that.
Okay, during the fiscal year in Munis, which is our financial accounting system, we do close it out, the project out, but it will continue to show on the monthly CIP reports until the end of the year, when it'll actually, when we close out the year, when it'll remove off of those reports. So the projects are closed, and then it's basically just the financial reporting on that system.
I want to remind everybody that the phone system is available. Again, the phone number is 702-589-9629. And while we are waiting for someone to call in, I did receive an email on the cip@bcnv.org. This one is about adding a sign as you're coming into town. And they're asking for it to identify and give credit to the Boulder City High School students and the numerous scholarships to other universities all over the country and Olympic participants from our city. That's a great suggestion, and it's actually something that's already in the works. Mayor McManus had asked about doing something similar to that. We're getting an estimate right now. We're not sure. Well, we're pretty sure it's not going to be high enough to include in the CIP. In order to be on the CIP list, it needs to be $25,000. So we are working on an estimate for that. If it does in fact come back over that $25,000 threshold, we're going to add it to the CIP before we do the final adoption in the spring. So that was a great suggestion. Thank you. Again, if anybody has any questions or comments on the projects that we've suggested, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Also, you're welcome to email any questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. The email address is cip@bcnv.org. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention earlier, the city clerk's office did remind me that this is not a formal public meeting. When you call in for your comments, it's not a normal public comment period where you have 5 minutes and everything goes into the record. This is a citizen workshop. We're here to answer any questions, have a discussion on any of the projects. Again, any comments that you do provide are going to be on the live recording and posted on the city website and YouTube, but it is not a formal public meeting, so we're not going to retain records of all the comments that were made. Again, the phone line to call is 702-589-9629.
You're on.
Yes, this is Fred Volz again. I guess we're not constrained by the one-time comments, so I'll just throw in a question about the Elaine K. Smith Center. Do we have any guidance on what we're going to be doing with that, capital project-wise, if anything?
No, there's nothing at this time. Sorry, this is Keegan, Public Works Director. There's nothing proposed right now. Originally when that $250,000 was put in there is when we were going through the Stantec study, and that was possibly going to be to do some remodel if the police were ever to go over there or another department. So at this time, there's nothing planned for that.
So essentially for another fiscal year anyway, it's just going to sit as is and be used as is.
Correct.
Okay.
We're going to have the meeting with council to ask about removal or adding any projects. If we get that direction from council that we should remove that project from the CIP, we'll happily do so.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, if you'd like to call in with any questions or comments, phone number is 702-589-9629, and the email address is cip@bcnv.org. we'll give it a couple more minutes to see if anybody else wants to call in. If you happen to miss the time, again, you can always email your questions at any point, or check back on the city website, the CIP page. The email address is cip@bcnv.org. And to remind anybody, the phone number is 702-589-9629. All right, everybody, I want to thank everybody that watched. Again, if you have any questions in the future, please email us at cip@bcnv.org.